Hi, this is Marsha.
And this is Kelly.
We are the 2Us of 2Us Fiber Adventures. Thanks for stopping by.
You'll hear about knitting, spinning, dyeing, crocheting, and just about anything else we can think of as a way to play with string.
We blog and post show notes at 2usfiberadventures.com.
And we invite you to join our 2Us Fiber Adventures group on Ravelry. I'm 100 Projects.
And I am Better in Motion.
We're both on Instagram and Ravelry, and we look forward to meeting you there.
Enjoy the episode.
Hello, Marsha.
Hi, Kelly.
Did you have a happy Thanksgiving?
I did. It was nice.
All right.
Kind of nice and relaxed. We went to my cousin's house, so I didn't have to make a turkey.
That's nice and relaxed.
I think I said last year that my mother used to have Thanksgiving, but my cousin has had Thanksgiving for the last, 15
It's been a long
plus
time,
years.
yeah.
Long time. And last year there was something going on with her business, and she was feeling stressed out and overwhelmed. And so she called me and asked if I would host it, which I did. And I realized that at the age of 50-something, I had never cooked a turkey before. So last year was my first year cooking a turkey. Wow. So now I'm back to not cooking a turkey. So my cousin made it, and I just made the sweet potatoes and cranberries, and that was it. That was all I had to do.
You
so
were
it was
in charge
nice.
of side dishes.
Yeah. It's nice when people divvy everything up.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was the kind that she just did everything, and it's hard, to do everything.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot. And then also, if you only have one oven, which most people only have one oven, I don't know how you cook all of that stuff, in one oven. So
the timing is really tricky, yeah.
Yeah, the timing's tricky. So anyway, it was nice. So, and you had a nice time?
Yes, we had a wild bunch at our house.
Oh, yeah?
Including the two kids, one who's just turned 2 and the other one is 4. Including the two kids, we had 15 people. Mm-hmm. My sister and her husband and her 3 girls and the grands, the grandniece and nephew, the little ones. My mom and her husband, Dennis, and it was a really nice group. My aunt was here, and she brought a friend who is 90. And lives in the house, not next door, but down the street from where my aunt used to live. So. Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes. I remember her. I have not met her, but I know your aunt's talked about her a lot.
A couple of years ago, they reconnected. My aunt had lived somewhere else and come back and now lives with us. And so she reconnected with some friends from the neighborhood. Anyway, so it was really nice to have some new blood at the table.
Yes. Do you find, Kelly, not that your family misbehaves, but everybody has to be on their good behavior because there's a new person at the table?
That's probably, I think that's true. Having somebody else there is just kind of nice, different conversations. And then the next day, after Thanksgiving, we had something really exciting happen.
Yes, let's hear about this. I know what it is, but I'm excited.
So we used to have a lot of dogs. We used to have 3, and then we had some foster dogs. So at some points we had 4 and 5 dogs at the house. And then when my aunt first moved here, she had 2. So that was a total of 5 in the household. And so we're down to 1, which seems really, really odd. I mean, there's some nice things about it, but it's really odd. And I had done some reaching out, thinking about a new puppy at one point, but that didn't pan out. Well, anyway, I get a call from a friend or a text from a friend who has another friend whose brother just died, and their dog, the brother's dog, is going to be going to a thing called Muttville, which is a shelter or a placement service, I guess, in the San Francisco Bay Area for elderly dogs. His owner had not been able to care for him for about 6 months. And I had been asked about him before, but Robert, we've never had a male dog, and Robert really didn't want a male dog. And so, when I was asked about him before, the answer was no. And then I was asked about him again, And so I thought, well, we've really been thinking about, how weird it is to just have one. And so I asked Robert, and he said, okay. And so Nash came to see if he was going to work out, and he's working out great, so we're keeping him.
He's cute, too.
Yeah, he's a yellow lab. Okay, so I'm going to be a snob now? I'm going to be a purebred dog owner snob.
Okay, that's okay.
So yellow labs are supposed to have black pigment. When we were showing, you learn the standard and stuff. They're supposed to have black pigment. And depending on how they're bred, it can turn up that they have liver pigment in a yellow lab. And that's the pigment. So
that's like their nose and their lips around their eyes.
Yes. And so all the yellow labs we've had have had, they've had really good dark pigment. The nose gets light as they get older. So, puppies have really dark black noses, but once they're a couple years old, their nose has faded. But around their eyes and their lips, they're all black. But Nash has liver pigment, so he has the same pigment on his lips and around his eyes that a chocolate lab would have. So it's a little jarring to me. I think he's cute. He's a great dog. He's really well behaved. He's been a lot of fun, and he's going to work out great. I mean, he's going to be a member of the family, but it's been a little bit jarring to look at his face and see this liver pigment in his eyes and lips. So I've been calling him liver lips.
You'll have to get over your snobbery.
I know. It's not his fault, and it doesn't change his personality. So
yeah,
he's a very nice dog, very well behaved. I mean, he's 10, so he's got a lot of years behind him, and he's good. He's fit right in, and you can tell he's happy to be with people. So yeah,
because where was he before the 6 months that he when his owner could not care for him?
He was with the owner's sister and brother-in-law. And in that situation, he was really an outside dog and slept in the garage. So that's not what he was used to.
And is he an indoor dog at heart?
Yeah, and I think he's been an indoor dog most of his life.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. People say to me, "Oh, you have such a nice backyard for your dogs." Well, my dogs would like to be inside.
Well, and also dogs. I mean, I remember we've talked about this. Is that people say, "Oh, I want to have a big backyard for my dog," but if you're not home, they are sleeping most of the time, right?
Yeah,
they're kind of active when you're active.
They want to be with people. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and if you're inside, they want to be inside. And Rudy likes him. Okay. I mean, I'm sure she's not totally thrilled. She's been the only dog for quite a while. So.
Yeah, Rudy was probably thinking, okay, finally I'm the top dog in this house.
Right. Yeah.
And now, this guy comes along. But sounds like she's fine with him.
Oh yeah, they're fine together, and they're both old enough that they don't really like play with each other. But every once in a while, one of them will get a toy and sort of taunt the other. Walk past and wag and wiggle and taunt the other one with the toy. So it's been fun shaking things up a little bit around here.
Like that 90-year-old guest you had at Thanksgiving, right? It's kind of the same, right? A 10-year-old dog.
Blood, that's right.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how everything is when I come down in April for the knitting retreat and I bring Enzo, because you'll have 2 males and you've never had a male.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how everybody interacts together.
He seems to be fine with other dogs, from what I've been told. I took him to Fort Ord the other day, and there are a lot of dogs there off leash, and so he had some encounters with other dogs, and he was fine. He seemed to be really, really pleasant with other dogs. So that's good. But he's intact, so he's going to have to get a little appointment with the vet.
Well, and Enzo's still intact, and so he will have an appointment with the vet in end of January, beginning of February. So everybody, when they meet, will be right as rain.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've been working. I'll just about my dog. I've been working with Enzo. I've been going around Green Lake almost every day with my bag of treats. And we've been working on healing and then also, leave it. Because, when there's another dog, it's interesting. He's not interested in people at all. I mean, initially he was like, he wanted to smell everybody. Now he's pretty much done with people because they're not quite as interesting as dogs. But, when there's another dog, then there's always a lot of sort of pulling at the leash. So we've been working on, leave it. And he did much better today. Yeah, we're working on it. And then, because I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's been raining like crazy, I had to buy him a rain jacket. And I did find when I went over to the pet store, the high-end expensive pet store with all organic, natural food.
Yes.
And
the hipster pet store?
The hipster pet store, and I got him a rain jacket, bright red rain jacket. So I will have to I'll put it on him and take a picture and post it in the show notes because he's so
Very
handsome.
cute,
and then he's got this handsome raincoat on him, and
nice.
But I was funny because I thought I want to spend $30, kind of like that's my top, and I could find some that were like $12. I thought, okay, now that if something for $12 is not going to last, right? It's probably going to fall apart.
There's a middle ground, yeah.
Yes. But then I went to, and I'm not saying anything negative about REI, but I looked at REI because when I was just Googling, rain jackets, REI came up. And they have a rain jacket. It's like over $80. I think it's like $90 or something for a rain jacket for a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anybody's going to get an expensive rain jacket, it's me.
Right.
Not the dog.
Well,
so he did not get that. He got a $30 rain jacket.
Well, that's good. And red's a good color for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wore a sweater that I got at REI today that I got somewhere around 1988. Mm-hmm. So if you did get the rain jacket at REI, it would probably be good for about 4 dogs.
Well, now, again, I'm not trying to say anything negative about REI because their stuff is really good. I mean, their products last. So you're right. If I got that rain jacket, it would be on my 4th poodle would be wearing it, but it would outlive me, right?
Right.
I don't think.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
knitting.
Oh yeah, knitting. No, we're not going to. So what are we into this now? 13 minutes, and we actually said the word knitting, but I'm not going to talk about knitting yet. I was going to say something.
Okay.
You inspired me, Kelly, because, after Thanksgiving, you swap out your everyday dishes and you put your Christmas dishes in the kitchen cupboard, and that's what you use then until New Year's, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't remember if I mentioned this or not, but I think it was over the summer. I was driving by a church near my house, and they had a big rummage sale. And I thought to myself, do not go in that. So I drove by, and then I came back, and it was still going on. And I thought, okay, don't go in there. So the second day, it was still going on. And I drive by, don't go in there. Drive back again, it's still going on. I thought, okay, you know what, go in there. So I went in there, and they had 8 place settings of Christmas china, Lenox Christmas china, and it has a serving bowl, serving platter, and a sugar and creamer for $45.
Wow!
And I was looking at it, and I said to the woman, she said, you need to buy that, good saleswoman. And I said, no. I said, I have so many dishes, I don't need another set of dishes. And she said, but then I said, I've always kind of wanted a Christmas set because my friend has this Christmas set that she swaps out. So she said, if I give it, how about $40? I'm like, okay, fine. So I thought, it goes to a good cause, right? This church rummage sale.
That's right.
So I bought this whole 8 place settings and the serving pieces for $40.
Nice.
So I got it out today, and it's just been sitting, so it's kind of dusty. So I pulled out my everyday dishes, and I'm washing it up, and I'm going to put it in the cupboard. But I thought, it'd be kind of nice to have a teapot. So I went online, and they still make it. It's and so Macy's has it. And I looked, and Kelly, just one 5-piece place setting is $200.
Holy cow! Yeah,
I know. And of course, Macy's always has a sale going on, so it's on sale for $99, so $100.
You are like the thrift queen.
Well, and it's funny because, I'm not going in there. I'm not going in there. I don't need anything. Well, I really don't need these dishes, but I have them. Anyway, so then I thought, well, I'm going to look and see what a teapot is. A teapot is normally $80, and it's on sale for $39.95, so basically $40. So one teapot, brand new, is what I paid for the entire 8-piece place setting.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway, I don't think I'm going to buy the teapot. But anyway, I was just kind of curious. I just think that's funny. That has absolutely nothing to do with knitting.
No.
But I know she posted it on Instagram, your picture that you would put your holiday dishes in the cupboard. So that's what I'm doing.
We both have dish habits.
Dish habits, yes. Okay, now on to knitting.
Knitting, okay. So, well, I can tell you I have very little. I'm still working on those red socks from Duran Dye Works Inferno color. Mm-hmm. I'm on the heel of the second sock. Those have been, I think I have last knitted on them the last time we podcast, and I'm knitting on them now. And then I have negative crocheting on my blue cardigan.
Negative crocheting?
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
It takes me a minute to figure out. So you had to undo something.
Yes. I got the one side done. Well, it wasn't all the way done, but the front panel attached to the back panel and added more to it and did the decreases for the sleeve cap. And then you're supposed to start on the other side. And so now you go out from the center back, and then you make the front, and then you attach so I did all that. Mm-hmm. And then I laid it out on the table so I could attach the new front, to the new part of the back that I had made. And I set it out on the table. It's like, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I sent you a picture.
Yes, I know.
Does not look right. This looks like I used 2 different crochet stitches. How did this happen? What did I do? And then I thought, did I make a mistake? Did I not remember the stitch properly? Basically, because the pattern, I think I didn't read it carefully. And I shouldn't do that because I don't know enough about crochet to do that. The pattern basically said, now do the same thing again for the other side of the back and the other front. So I made basically 2 right fronts and 2 right backs. So I've got it inside out. So
So I'm trying to visualize. I mean, I saw the picture, but I'm trying to visualize. So when it says to make another one, but aren't they shaped differently? I mean,
well, yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Yes.
I mean, wouldn't you have when you with a sweater, like a knitted sweater pattern, a left and a right front are shaped differently, so you have different. But they don't do that in this.
No, the instructions do say that. What happened was I think I started on the wrong row when I started the back, because you actually start it by attaching it to the center line of the first piece you made. And I think I didn't start with the first row. I have to go back and check for sure. I'm pretty sure what I did was I skipped over the one little line of instruction that talks about the first row. And so I started on the second row. So basically I have the wrong side out.
Oh, I get it. So you were following the correct.
Yes, my stitch pattern was right, and I was following the directions. But as I have
it's like starting on the wrong side as opposed to starting on the right side.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then then I'm going along, and I'm like, okay, I know what to do now. I just do the other front just the same way, and I go to the front pattern, and I start going, and I made a front. That looks perfect if you stick it going the same direction as the one I already made. Unfortunately, it has to go the opposite direction, and then you're looking at the backside. So I ripped them both out, and now I'm still just one side is done.
Okay.
So
well, I'm going to say something which may not help.
Okay.
Because that's what good friends are for, right?
Yes.
But that's how we learn, right?
Yes.
When we make mistakes, we learn. So you're like, yeah.
And I think, it's funny because in my regular life, my school life, my academic life, I mean, I make mistakes. I've made mistakes, but that wasn't the way I learned. Just like plunge in and start and see what happens. But with knitting and crochet, that is what I do. I'm like, oh, okay, I read like half the sentence and charge off to do what I'm pretty sure I need to do. It's like, oh, I know what to do now. Okay, good. And it works okay with most of the time. Well, actually, longtime listeners will recognize that it doesn't work okay all the time.
Well, I admire your confidence. I can do this.
I could do. Oh, I know what she wants me to do. Yeah. Why would I think that when I am not an experienced crocheter? I don't know, but yeah. Misplaced confidence is what it is. But it was it was discouraging because I was excited about getting it so I could put, it would start to look like a sweater. And then, negative crochet.
Well, and the other positive thing to say too is it is possible with knitting or crochet, while frustrating, you can rip it out and put it back. Mm-hmm. Unlike, if you're sewing a dress or something and you cut it out the wrong way, once you cut it, there's no going back.
Right.
So,
yes.
So that's a positive.
That is, that is true. And crochet, like we've talked about before, is a lot easier. When you're done ripping, you've got your one live stitch. Whereas knitting, when you're done ripping, okay, now you have to put everything back on the needles and get it all organized and get ready to go. So,
yeah. I'm trying to be supportive and helpful by pointing out the positives.
Well, thank you. I did sort of lick my wounds by winding the yarn for the poncho. Mm-hmm. I started winding the yarn for the poncho. I have not finished that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not even started on the poncho adventure yet, really. But that's all right. I'll get there, and we have plenty of time.
Well, you've started because you wound the yarn.
I wound one skein of 3, yeah. So I'm splitting it in half.
That's a start.
Yeah.
That's
It's a very small start, but yes, it's a start. And I was looking at the bundle. Oh, my gosh. I might even have to change my pattern.
I know there's some great ponchos.
Yeah, there's almost 100 ponchos, and about 20 people have contributed to that bundle. There's so many in there that I really, truly have looked at a couple of other patterns and thought, maybe I'll just switch to this one.
Okay, and I'm going to say something, too, about Ravelry. And about that is, I was looking at poncho patterns. I didn't see half of the ones that people posted.
I know.
Wow, how did I miss that?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the keywords you put in, or I don't know, maybe people have
actually, now that I think about it, I think probably, remember I started out, I was going to use the Elizabeth Lavold Silky Wool, which is DK weight. So I thought maybe I was putting in DK weight, specifying DK weight yarn. Maybe that's why. And then I didn't, a lot didn't show up. But that could have been what I was doing. But yeah, there's some great, darling, cute patterns. So
very. And so I think I'm going to, I don't know. I really like the Om shawl. And I want to use all the buttons that it takes, so I probably will use it for this. But I'm thinking I might make a second one.
I think there's going to be another poncho in my future.
Yeah, there's just way too many cute patterns in that bundle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I like the ones with cowl necks. Mm-hmm. So I might think about that. I know.
In fact, the one that I just looked at, in fact, I think when we first were talking to each other, there's one that was really cute. We just talked about it, Kelly. I'm not ready. I'm going back. I'm on my iPad quickly trying to go back and find it.
Winter cape?
Yes, that one. But also the Rowena.
Oh, yes.
That has almost like a split, like a cowl, but sort of split kind of.
Yeah.
That's cute.
In fact, that looks a lot like the collar of the Rowena. Has a collar that reminds me of the Mesa poncho.
Yeah.
It's nice. The designer of that one, let's see, who is it? Oh, by Jumper Cables.
Everybody take a look. If you're going to make a poncho and you haven't picked your pattern, take a look because there's some really cute things.
And even if you're not planning to make a poncho, take a look because you might change your mind.
Yeah, right.
All of those ponchos are very, very inspiring.
Well, all this poncho talk, I need to talk about my poncho. I think the last episode I was talking about how I had decided I was going to make the Rodeo Drive Poncho by Staci Perry. And I talked about how the yarn that I wanted to use, the Elizabeth Lavold Silky Wool, was too light and too drapey for it. So I got Berocco Ultra Alpaca, and I'm knitting on it right now as we're talking. And I'm on my, where am I now? I think let's see. I am halfway through my second ball.
Wow.
Or maybe almost at the end of my second ball. So I'm making pretty good progress. It's a really easy pattern to remember and I like it too because I think it's going to well, I don't know for sure, but I think it's going to fit really nicely because you actually do have shoulder shaping at the beginning. And now I'm done with that, and it's basically stocking it around and around, except down the back, you do increases. And there's, let me see, how should I say, at the end of each row and the beginning of each row, that first stitch, or the last stitch and the first stitch, you do a knit through the back loop, which is creating like a line down the back. And then, right before that last stitch and right after the first stitch, you do your increases. And then the third row and the seventh row, you do your cable shaping, because there's a big fat cable that goes down the front. And so it's really easy to remember the pattern. I am looking at the pattern every time I make the cable, only because I really don't want to make a mistake on the cable.
Right.
If it was like down the back or something, I might I can't see it, but it's going to be right down the front. So I'm trying to be really careful not to make a mistake.
You don't want to cross it the wrong way.
Yeah. This is kind of interesting too, because the cable repeat is 8 rows. So my stitch counter, I just keep resetting it back to 1. You go 1 through 8 and then just keep resetting it, because basically the idea with this poncho is once you get through the shoulder shaping, you just keep doing the same increases and cabling, shaping, patterning all the way until you have about, I think she said about 35 grams of yarn left. And then you do the shaping of the border.
Oh, that's nice. So you could actually either cheat and have a little less yarn than it called for, or if you were using hand spun, you could use it up.
Right. So
nice.
You can make it short, so it's more like a capelet kind of, I guess. Or you can make it down to your kneecaps if you wanted,
Oh,
if you have enough yarn. I would think, too, you probably could even use a different weight of yarn if you... within reason.
Yeah.
You'd have to modify the
stitch count, probably.
The stitch count, right. But anyway, and I really like this yarn, too. I like knitting with it.
Yeah.
It's been
I remember
nice.
you liked it when you had the shawl that you were doing with the alpaca.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was funny because, Kelly, you know how I always was, like, I only have one project going, like one big project and a pair of socks. That's it. Never more. I now have 6 projects that are in the works. And it's because we did, remember that 5 project?
Yes.
I had to have 5 projects going totally outside and now I have 6. And I was walking the dog again around Green Lake today, and I was thinking, I was wearing a polar fleece hat. And I thought, why am I wearing a polar fleece hat? I'm a knitter. I should have a hand knit hat on my head. I have one, and I need to get it out and wear that. And I was thinking, I've got all this small amounts of yarn that I picked up at the Goodwill. I should make a hat because it doesn't have very much yardage.
You know what hat I really love? It takes a while because it's fingering weight, but I really get a lot of wear out of my sock head hat.
Yes.
And that's a skein of sock
I made
yarn,
that one.
and I made mine really long. I did the full. I think I did the full length on mine, and I love it. It's the greatest hat to just throw on. I get a lot of use out of that.
And the other thing I thought too, I need gloves. Why don't I make myself some mittens?
Yes.
Honestly, why don't I?
Live somewhere where you could actually get some use out of something like that.
Yeah. Yes. I should have 12 different hats I could wear and gloves or mittens because, I kind of need them.
Yeah. Get on it, Marsha.
So, I know, get right on it.
Cast on some more projects.
Well, and
see if you can get to 10.
Oh, God. No. Well, what else is going on?
Well, I went to Fiber Shed, and I have so much to talk about from that. Mind-blowing. It was so good. It was a wool and fine fiber symposium, and the theme of it was For the Love of Place. And it was in Point Reyes, California, which is a very coastal, small-town coastal area. People go there on vacation, and lots of interesting food. We ate really well while we were there. Lots of artisanal cheese and that kind of food. And I say this with all affection because I have been called this, but it's a very crunchy granola area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's you, Kelly.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect. It was perfect. So anyway, the event was really good. It had a marketplace, and so that was fun. But the real meat of it, there was just so much. There were panel discussions and things. So, in fact, I think there's so much that our listeners would be interested in that we could actually do a little segment each episode talking about a bit of it, because I don't think they want to hear me talk about it for an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Probably not.
All in one stretch, no. So let me just talk a little bit about it this time, and then I'll talk more, go into other details. But the idea of it was to look at the whole supply chain of fabric from soil to skin. Then they sort of organize the panels that way, from soil to skin. So like from the very beginning to the finished item, which is really kind of cool. And what FiberShed is, it's an organization that's devoted to this idea of networking people so that there can be a local supply chain for fabric, for fiber items. And not just fabric, but other kinds of uses of fiber. So, farmers connecting with weavers, connecting with other people, but not just in, like, I think of it in the small scale, like at a fiber festival where you buy somebody's fleece and then you go home and spin it. But they're actually looking at a bigger picture of commercial suppliers. And that kind of thing. So I think that's very interesting. And then also looking at making sure that the practices in that supply chain are earth-friendly and supportive of the environment. So that was really cool. There's this whole idea of the carbon beneficial fabric. The actual terminology is climate beneficial fabric. And so the idea is that you're not creating a carbon footprint, you're actually, the processes that are used and the people that are involved in their operations actually help to sequester carbon from the atmosphere. I'll talk about that for sure, because I thought that was fascinating, very interesting, some scientific articles that I want to dig into, and so that's pretty cool. So that's kind of what their purpose is. And they have a nice website that they just redesigned. And they actually have their mission on their website. I didn't write it down, but it probably explains a little bit better what their purpose is. This FiberShed, I did find out, remember we were talking about prosumer?
Yes. What does that mean?
What is a prosumer? Yeah. So they gave a definition, which I found a little bit too, I don't know, flowery or kind of esoteric or ethereal, kind of, like hypothetical. And then I found some other information. So their definition that they gave on one of the slides during the presentation was bringing intangible, in other words, social and cultural, together with the tangible as a means to rebuild our systems and manage resources with wisdom and skill.
Okay.
Huh? It's, when you really look at it and you read it and you think about it, it's really, I think, a beautiful way to think about it. But it's a little hard to unpack, or it's a little dense. I went online to look at this idea of prosumer, and I found this word started with, his name's Alvin Toffler. Does that name sound familiar to you? Futurist?
Yeah.
Yeah, from like the 70s. Yeah. So this is not a new
Didn't
concept.
he write that book about the Volkswagen Bug? No. Yes, I think so.
Maybe. Future Shock.
Future Shock, yeah.
Yeah. So he and some others around that time talked about this idea of a consumer who is also involved in the development of the product and also like a brand and product advocate. So that makes more sense. So you're taking those intangible aspects of being an advocate for the product and wanting to promote the culture of the product together with getting the product yourself and putting them together in a way that means you're consuming resources wisely. So anyway, I thought that was really kind of an interesting take on consumption. And I actually am prosuming something. I made a purchase.
Oh, okay.
While I was there. So one of the things that FiberShed does that I think is really interesting is in order to explore this idea of the supply chain and see what that supply chain is and isn't and where the holes are and what they can do to make it not just a really small thing, but actually, an actual supply chain for a corporate level supply, right? Because we want these people to be making money. We don't want the farmers, ranchers, shepherds to have to spend so much time getting their product out to this spinner and that spinner and the other spinner and this market and that farmer's market and the other farmer's market, that they don't have time to actually farm and ranch.
Right.
So big scale, not like global scale, but large scale. The idea is can they develop a local supply chain for a company to sell a product? So one of the projects that they did in past years was the backyard hoodie, which actually was sold by North Face, and they had the cotton grown in California and the denim made woven in California. No, that was the Grow Your Jeans project. The hoodie was sweatshirt material, and so they had cotton from California milled and had to go to South Carolina, I think, to be milled. But anyway, it was part of finding out, could you do this? Right? Could you provide a product that was locally grown and then have a retailer
like a major retailer?
Yeah, major retailer, want to sell it and be able to sell it. So they did the backyard hoodie. And then they did the Grow Your Jeans project, where they, again, grew indigo locally and the cotton locally, and then had it milled somewhere, and then had it woven locally and sewed into jeans locally. So it was, they found out where the supply chain breaks down. There was no place locally to have the cotton. I think the cotton spun into something. So they find the gaps in these projects. They're doing like prototypes for potential garment industry ideas. So the one that I just participated in is this idea of CSA fabric. So CSA, community supported agriculture.
Right. People
are familiar with the idea probably of buying a CSA box of vegetables or CSA maybe meat, eggs, something like that from farmers, but they're doing a CSA fabric project. So they have a local wool grower, California, growing the wool. She has Rambouillet sheep, and they are then having that spun into yarn, and then the yarn is being woven into fabric. And then the fabric is being sold. So I bought 3 yards of this CSA wool fabric. And they had samples of it there so you could see. And one of the things that's not part of the supply chain locally is the finishing. After it's woven, it needs to go through a washing process, kind of a second scour. You scour the wool, but you also have to sort of scour the fabric.
Okay. Because
there are spinning oils from commercial spinning and then it needs to be just like anything that you knit or weave. You have to, you have to do some wet finishing, and so they're having their consumers are part of the production process. Our participation in the production process is that finishing part of it, and it's also not dyed. So we'll be participating in the dyeing of it.
Okay.
So this fabric is Rambouillet sheep. It's a 22.7 micron fiber, and it's being spun into a yarn that is, the size of the yarn is, the weaving sizes are, it's according to weaving sizes, it's 24/2. So 24 is the size of it, and that there's a calculation you do with that number that tells you the yards per pound. And basically, the larger the number, the finer the yarn.
Okay.
And then, so the 24 is pretty fine yarn, and then the 2 means it's 2-ply.
Okay. So
that yarn's then being made into the fabric.
So what's the fabric like? I mean, what's the...
It's not a straight twill, like blue jean fabric is a straight twill design.
Right.
This has some texture to it.
Okay.
So
because I'm not a weaver, and to know what all these, I understand what you're saying about the numbers, but I can't visualize it. So what is the weight would be something that you would make? Is it so fine it'd be something that you make a man's suit out of? Or is that fine? Okay.
Or like a skirt or a dress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I probably won't be doing that. I don't know what I'll be doing with mine.
One thing I don't understand. So you're the missing link in the finishing and the dyeing the dyeing and
the last part of it, yeah.
The last part of it. So, but you keep the fabric, right?
Right.
That's the okay. So you're buying it, but you're filling in that last link.
Right.
Before you actually make something with the fabric. Okay.
I'm sort of I'm a consumer, but I'm also a participant in the production process.
So are you thinking, because it's just the natural color wool, are you thinking of, well, okay, I'm going to ask the question because I don't know. Do mills, when they weave wool fabric, do they dye the yarn first or do they dye the fabric after it's woven? I would think they would dye the yarn first before they make the fabric.
I think in a lot of cases they dye the yarn first.
Like you'd have to if you're doing a plaid or a tartan
or like Pendleton, they dye the wool first,
right?
And then they spin, the different colors.
So are you? I know you haven't really decided what you're going to do with it, but have you thought about dyeing the fabric?
No, not really.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I'll do. I might just keep it the natural color. I don't know. It's really pretty. Okay. It's a nice creamy color. So I may just keep it that color. I don't know what I'm going to even do with it. I mean,
and that's not even the point, right? What you're going to do with it?
No, it really wasn't. As soon as I heard about the project, it was like, okay, I want some of this.
Well, actually, I'm going to take that back. That is sort of the point. You have to do something with it because to complete the chain.
Yes, I do, and I will. But it's kind of like when I spin yarn. I know something will happen to it eventually, but the point of it is just spinning. Yeah. So, but I thought that was really exciting and very interesting. So the spinning is happening in Maine because there is not a mill here that could spin the yarn at the scale that they were looking for. So the spinning is happening in Maine, and then one other part of the process, I think the wool scouring is happening somewhere else. So, there are gaps. Like I said, there are gaps in this supply chain. If you want it 100% locally done, it won't work because we don't have those people. And so part of their project was to identify that. And that was very interesting to know that even if we wanted to produce this type of fabric at this kind of scale locally, we have the weaver. Houston Textiles is the guy who's doing the weaving, and I'll put a link to his business in the show notes. It's very interesting, his weaving business. And I'm following him on Instagram now, and he had a video the other day of his looms actually weaving this fabric. That was really cool to see. They're all mechanical.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating to see this machinery that he's using. And it's old machinery.
Well, I was going to say, at one time we had the ability to do this in this country, but we've lost it. I know there's my brother was telling me that there's do you remember we were in I don't know if you went with us that one day to Carmel, but there was a shop that they sold these it was a Japanese company, and they sold these jeans. And my brother knew all about it. Unbelievably expensive jeans. And he wanted me to buy my son Ben a flannel shirt, but it was like $250 for a flannel shirt. I'm like, I'm not, the way I'm not going to buy that for him. But what that was the reason I bring it up is this Japanese company had purchased the old looms.
Yes.
And so they were now making American jeans. It was like what our fabric used to be. But now all of this is made overseas now. But so they actually had the American looms, and they saw an opportunity. So
right.
Yeah.
A lot of the machinery was shipped elsewhere, purchased and shipped elsewhere.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is really cool about this organization, Fibershed, is that they are trying to do an inventory, and it's not on their website yet, but we got to see a couple of slides of the what it's going to look like. But they've done a mill inventory, and so they have all over the country identified where is a place where you can have wool scoured, where is a place where you can have wool made into roving, where is a place where you can have wool spun, at what scale, because there are places there are places in California. In fact, I'm going to Ranch of the Oaks this weekend, that small business that does milling of fiber into roving and yarn. And they do scouring, but not at the scale. And so they're doing this inventory of what businesses are out there in existence and what scale do they have, so that people can see what's there. And then somebody who wanted to try to connect up a supply chain could do it. And part of what they are talking about doing in Fibershed is making this available. So the farmer on the one end doesn't have to figure out what's the whole supply chain to get to the retailer, right? And the retailer on the other end doesn't have to figure out what's the whole supply. If they want to supply a locally produced product, they don't have to do all the research to figure out, okay, what's the supply chain from the farmer all the way to their product. It's kind of like they're building these connections and networks and documentation of what's out there, so that from either end, people can more easily connect up into a supply chain. Just fascinating.
Yeah, fascinating.
And just the whole connection to some of the discussions, some of the more political discussions about free trade and NAFTA and globalism, and all of those concepts were all kind of in the background of this event that was talking about what do farmers do? What do the farmers who raise these fiber animals do, or who grow fiber plants? What do they do? How does their business work? How do they connect up with other people? So it was kind of like a personal scale discussion of some things that are also out there in the wider atmosphere right now, in the news. So anyway, lots and lots more to talk about on this subject. I hope people are interested, because I could do this. I've gone a little long here, but I could do a little segment probably each episode, just a tiny little something related to this idea.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting.
Cool.
So I'm going to ask you a question. You do not have to answer this question if you don't want to answer it. But one of the issues I know is that the cost of so this supply chain it's really cool but people who sometimes the reason people are having things done overseas is we don't want to pay sometimes for this supply chain in the United States. So was your fabric expensive, or? It was
$55 a yard.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was pricey.
Okay. And I don't know, what, if you were to go to Pendleton, how if you went to a fabric store, I mean, like, assume like Pendleton would be like the equivalent, right? That I
probably
know of. I mean, I don't know what that costs a yard.
Yeah, I don't know either. No, it definitely. In fact, one of the presentations that they had that day was the true cost of, the true cost of raising the sheep, the true cost of knitting a sweater, the true cost. They were talking about those costs, and I think one of the things that we don't see when we consume things from other places is the cost that doesn't get passed along to us. Right, those other costs, the cost to the environment, the cost to the labor, the cost to the people, all of those things. And I have opinions about that, but I'm not always able to live up to those opinions.
Right.
Because sometimes I like to have things that are inexpensive.
Right.
And sometimes I like the fact that I don't have to pay the true cost, you know? So it was cool to have something where I could say, yes, I see the value of this. I want to participate in this. I want some of this fabric. I want to be part of this project. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. Well, that's really
it was a lot of food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I hear this kind of stuff, it always sort of makes me think. Like when I go to the grocery store. Okay, so a real simple thing to look at, is that we have so much produce now from Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I have nothing against Mexico. I have to just say that first of all. But I always think, well, gosh, I've read in the paper that sometimes Mexico doesn't have the best environmental standards. I mean, they're growing. We want basil, and year round we want basil. Year round we want tomatoes, and a lot of it they're growing on the Baja Peninsula. And they're pulling water out of the aquifer. So there's a huge cost to environmental cost for buying produce from other countries. And then also just the fuel to get that produce into our grocery store here in Seattle, Washington. So I kind of made a point not to buy produce from Mexico. So I'm not buying I don't buy tomatoes now because everything, a lot of the, like as I say, basil, tomatoes, asparagus, they're all grown in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So I had an interesting discussion with one of the agriculture teachers at the college, and I was talking to him about locally grown produce, and we were having this discussion, and basically he said to me, that's all well and good. Mm-hmm. It's nice that you have that view that you want to buy locally grown and in season produce, but if you live in Nebraska or Iowa, what are you going to eat during the winter? Well, yes. I mean, it's true. We ship. I mean, you live in California, so California is the produce capital, right? I mean, you're shipping all of that stuff to Nebraska.
Yeah. Well, and from other countries too. It reminded me that it's not a simple. Right? This is a very complicated issue.
It's a very complicated issue, and also in my state, Washington, we ship apples to Asia. Mm-hmm. Because I was in Japan and I saw Washington State apples in the market. So,
and your farmers,
yes,
want to make a living,
right?
And that's where they're able to make a living.
So are you saying I should buy tomatoes from Mexico?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's a really complicated issue. I know. And in fact, one of the people that I want to talk about in a future episode is a fashion designer, and she was talking about how she just got tired of trying to do less bad.
Yes. Well,
right?
Because kind
no
of
matter what you
exhausting
do,
to try and figure out what's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a system. Mm-hmm. And so because it's a system, you do one thing here and it affects something over there, and then you do this thing and it affects that thing. And she said she just got tired of trying to do less bad. Mm-hmm. And she just decided, okay, how can I just do more good? Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, that's perfect because we can't avoid doing bad.
Right.
We can't. We have an impact on the planet regardless, right? I mean, we do. Mm-hmm. And so if we focus on doing less bad, that's just so overwhelming and negative.
Yes, that's true.
But how can we do more good? And so that, I thought that was really an uplifting way to think about it. And she has a really interesting story, so that'll be another episode. Talk about her. Yeah, I'll talk about her.
Well, very interesting because I this has been very kind of illuminating, and I'm interested to hear in future episodes all the things you learned. Yeah, very cool.
So I have two event announcements that came out of this. One is that Fibershed is actually doing a knit along.
Okay.
The idea is that you use something that is local to you. And then they had suppliers, obviously, that were there at the event, supplying yarn for this knit-along project. It's a shawl, and it's called the Radiata Shawl.
Okay.
And it's by Emily Cunetto. Sorry, it's getting dark here, and I can't see my notes. I haven't turned on the light. Emily Cunetto, the Radiata Shawl, and it uses at minimum 300 yards, and depending on it's made for any gauge, so the pattern is designed. It's a very simple pattern, so that somebody who is new to knitting could do it. It's kind of cute. I thought it was an interesting design. So they're having a knit-along, if anybody's interested in participating. They had their cast-on the 28th of November, and I think the knit-along is scheduled to be just for a month, so I may not actually participate. I was excited when I was there at the event and thinking I would do this, but based on all the other things I have going on at this time, I think probably not. But it's a cute pattern, and people should go look at it. I'll put it in the show notes. And then the other thing I found, because I was looking on the Fiber Shed website, is an event that's coming up on December 11th, and it's associated with the Wild Mushroom Foray in Santa Cruz. So if anybody is interested in, if you're local and you're interested in mushrooms, they have a mushroom festival in Santa Cruz called the Wild Mushroom Foray, and it's December 8th through 11th, so next weekend. But on the 11th, they're having a dye class.
Okay.
That is by Alyssa Allen is the teacher, and it's just a dye class for dyeing with mushrooms. They call it mycoflora. Dyeing with mycoflora, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. That's one of the things on the Fiber Shed website. Most of the events are north of San Francisco Bay, so in the Point Reyes, that area, Petaluma, Santa Rosa, that area. But this particular one is in Santa Cruz. Okay. I'm not going, but I thought it was an interesting idea. For people, I know natural dyeing has gotten to be a thing that people are interested in right now, and this idea of dyeing with mushrooms and lichens in a sustainable way, not just go strip the trees of lichen, is pretty interesting. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Just that we have our giveaway threads still open. We have 3 skeins of yarn from the Woolly Thistle shop, Claire of New Hampshire Knits podcast. She has a shop called Woolly Thistle, and she's donated 3 skeins of yarn from Blacker Yarns, and there's a picture of them in the Ravelry thread and a prompt that you can answer to take part in the giveaway. And then also we have a skein of yarn that I bought from Countess Ablaze that we're offering as a prize, because I just think she's an amazing dyer in the UK, and so that thread is open too. It'll be open until our next episode, which we usually record on Wednesday. So the next Wednesday is December 14th when we'll be recording. So the morning of December 14th, I'll close that thread. Okay. So you still have time.
Yep.
About 2 weeks.
Yep. I looked at the website and really kind of cool looking yarns.
Yeah.
I almost whipped out my credit card, but I restrained myself.
Yeah. Yeah, we could have a whole other discussion about consumption
and self-control.
Well, actually, I'll just mention this one little thing, because I think this is a very interesting idea and also an interesting phenomenon. This was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I ran across a website, a blog from some people in the San Francisco Bay Area who decided, there were 3 families, 3 couples, or I think they had families, some of them had families. Anyway, 3 couples who decided on New Year's Eve that they were going to go for a year without buying stuff. You know, like they would buy the necessary things like toilet paper, food, and you know, if your underwear got bad holes in it and you needed new underwear, you could buy. There were rules, you know, there were some like guidelines, but basically their idea was to go a whole year without buying things. And I thought it was so fascinating that I read the whole I came across it after they had already completed their year. And so I read the whole year's worth of the blog. And right before the episode, I was looking for it because I was thinking about this idea of consumption. And I couldn't find it. So I don't know if I'll be able to find it to put it in the show notes. But people have done it since. But the weirdest thing, I thought it was an interesting idea. But the thing that's weird to me that I think would be fun to talk about sometime is that I happened to mention it to a group of friends that I walk with. And their reaction was so severe. It was as though I was making a judgment on them. I mean, people got mad at me. And all I was saying was I thought it was an interesting blog. That's all I said. I wasn't saying I was going to do it. I wasn't saying they should do it. I just said it was interesting. And oh my gosh, the reaction that I got. That would be an interesting thing to talk about too. Just this idea of consumption. And the emotions that it brings up in people.
Yeah, because I know there's clearly, for many people, you're having a kind of a down day. Oh, go buy something, Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've done it.
Yeah,
you've done it. We've all done it.
Yeah, we've all done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm not against consumption. I just thought it was a very interesting.
Oh yes, you are. You're judging me, Kelly, because I bought that yarn at the Goodwill.
Take a look at what I bought lately.
Actually,
you'll know that's not true.
Yeah, just when you were talking about that, I was sort of thinking to myself, gee, what things I buy, and like other than food and toilet paper and liquor, are there things I buy that I don't need? Probably there are.
Yeah.
I'm kind of intrigued by that idea. I could go an entire year without buying yarn and still have plenty of things to knit. Yeah. I wouldn't be suffering at all. I would not suffer at all if I went an entire year. But on
the other hand, part of our role as prosumers.
Oh, is to buy?
In some ways, part of our role as prosumers is that we are product and brand advocates. So we're participating in the process of people growing their business.
God, it makes my head hurt.
But really, don't you want the yarn suppliers to be in
absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Right?
I do.
But it's complicated.
It's complicated. It's so complicated. I want to help out the yarn producers, but at the same time, I seriously, it would be easy to go one entire year and knit every single day and not buy yarn with my and I don't even think I have that much, but
I could weave that way. I don't know that it would be harder for me to knit that way.
Yeah.
Unless I was really experimenting with blending
I'm kind of
yarns.
Intrigued by the idea.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it again. Maybe.
Yeah.
It was an interesting. I'll see if I can find that blog. It was very, very fascinating, and even more fascinating was what happened when I brought it up.
Yes. And, that's way more interesting than the blog.
Among friends that I think are like-minded.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I'm not talking about bringing it up in some arena of people who are totally different from me. It was very interesting. So anyway, we'll leave that for another.
Yeah,
we'll leave that for people to chew on.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway. Until our next episode.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm glad we had some interesting stuff to talk about since I didn't have any knitting.
Yes, and I don't have any knitting. Well, I have knitting, but nothing
crochet.
really. I have knitting, but nothing really new to talk about. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we will say goodbye.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. To subscribe to the podcast, visit 2usfiberadventures.com. We have links for iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, and others.
Join us on our adventures on Ravelry and Instagram. I am Better in Motion, and Kelly is 100 Projects.
Until next time, we're the 2Us
doing our part for World Fleece.